In this section of the exercise, we're going to set the current project file, and then we're going to start to sketch and extrude out the car body for an F1 in Schools car. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to set the current project file. Now there's a couple different ways to do this. So from the Welcome dialog box, as you can see here, go ahead and click on Projects, or let me close out of this. Now what I'm simply going to do is click on Projects here from the Get Started tab, Launch Panel. Now in the Projects dialog box, this lists my current projects up at the top. Now previously what I've done is installed the dataset files, so I need to add that project to my current list. I'm simply going to do this by clicking on the Browse button. And I'm going to go back to my C drive, that's where the files were installed. Scroll on down, double click on F1 in Schools, again the default folder. And there's my project file, so double click on f1inschools.ipj. And you can see that it will be added to the list, and it is current with the check mark in front of it. So now with that project set, now the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and create a new part file. Now again, a couple different ways to do this here. So we have the new command from the launch panel. I could also get to this from the application menu. Also from the quick access toolbar, I do have a drop-down list that will allow me to create new assemblies, drawings, and parts presentation file. With Inventor, you can configure which unit you want to have as your default. And depending upon the unit that you set, it will go back and it will dictate which unit will be used here. So in this case, will be millimeters or inch. Now in my case, I have mine set up as inch. So what I'm going to do here is I'm simply going to click on the new icon itself, and that'll bring up the Create New File dialog box. So here on the left-hand side, I have my different folders, and I simply want to select on the metric, and I want to base this off of the millimeter file for the template, so double click on standard millimeter. Now the first thing that I need to do now is create a new sketch. So again, a couple different ways to do this here. I can go back from the ribbon, or what I'm going to do is simply right click from the marquee menu, click on New Sketch. Now as you can see, the coordinates on the lower left hand corner, I'm showing my X, Y, and the Z, and I want to select the X, Y plane that corresponds to this, so I'll go ahead and do that. So what I'd like to do next is sketch out the outline of the car body, and I'm going to do that by using the line command. So again, I'm just going to simply right click from the marquee menu, create line, and I'm going to move my cursor over the 0, 0 point, and you'll notice a green dot appears, and that's telling me that it's going to be coincident, meaning that it's going to touch. And I'm also going to pan, and I'm going to zoom back here a little bit because I want this to be 200 millimeters, and I want to be able to see that. So I'm going to type in 200, and I'm going to press the Tab key. And you can see that it locks in the 200 millimeters. And as soon as it's showing me that it's going to be horizontal, I'm going to go ahead and click. Now what I'd like to do is move up my cursor straight up. And it's showing me that it's perpendicular. Again, I want that to be 20. And again, I like to press the Tab key so it locks itself back in. And click. And you notice that those dimensions were being created. So again, I'm going to do 90. Now another way to do this, as soon as I have the number placed in there, and it's showing me that in this case that it's going to be parallel, just press Enter. Now what I'd like to do next is draw an arc, but instead of exiting out of the line command, coming up here and selecting on the arc command, I'm simply going to move my cursor over the endpoint of that line till it turns to a gray circle, and then click and hold down the left mouse button. And I'm going to move my cursor back over to the left-hand side. And as soon as I let go, that arc is created. You can see that I'm right back into drawing a line. And I'm simply going to move my cursor back over the original 0, 0 point and click. I'm going to press the Escape key to finish out the command. Now looking at the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you can see that it shows one dimension that is needed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to simply right-click, start up the General Dimension command. I'm going to select the left vertical line, move my cursor where I want to place that dimension, and I would like that to be 8 millimeters. So I'm just going to type in 8 and Enter, and Inventor is going to place in the default unit for me. So what I'm going to do next is I want to move the 200 millimeter dimension so it's not inside the geometry anymore. So I'm just going to click and hold, and as soon as I get the 4 arrows, that's our move symbol, move that out of the way. The dimensions that we place inside Inventor are parametric, meaning when I change their value, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to just simply double click on the 200 and type in 250 and then Enter, or click on the green check mark, and you can see that the geometry lengthened to reflect that 250 millimeters. So again, if I double click back on there, I want to change that back to 200. Again, you'll notice that the unit was added because we started off with millimeters, and we'll change that back to 200. Now what I'd like to do is I want to extrude this out. So the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to finish the sketch. So again, simply right click, finish 2D sketch from the marking menu. So what I would like to do next is extrude this profile out. A couple different ways that I can go ahead and do that. Again, I could come back up here from the Create panel, go ahead and click on Extrude. You'll notice I have the shortcut letter E, or we can do it from a heads-up display by simply selecting on any geometry in the profile. We get a little mini toolbar that appears. I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Extrude, and the profile was automatically selected for me. So back here in the mini toolbar, I can simply type in a value. I can grab on the arrow, click and drag, and I can change its size. Now what I'd like this to be is the overall dimension is going to be 70 millimeters, but I'm currently only going to work on half of this. So the 70 millimeters reflects the overall length of what the car body itself is going to be. So again, I could simply come back here and I could type in 35 millimeters. Or if you prefer, you can type in 70 and you can let Inventor do the math for you. We'll just do 70 divided by 2. And then either go ahead and click on Enter, or what I'm going to do here is click on the green check mark. Now what I'd like to do is I'm going to rotate the viewpoint so I can see underneath the car body. And I'm going to start off by doing that here with our free orbit command. And rotate that back down, pan it over, press the escape key to exit out of there. So the next thing that I want to do is create a sketch on the bottom of the car body. So very simply, I'm just going to click on that bottom face, and then from the mini toolbar, go ahead and click on Create Sketch. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to sketch in a couple profiles that will remove material to further define the car body. So again, simply right click, Create Line. I'm going to move my cursor over the left vertical line, click. And I want this to be 50 millimeters, so 50. Then tab, again lock that back in. And again I want to draw in an arc, so moving my cursor back over the endpoint, click and drag. Now again, what I don't want to do is get right to that midpoint, so make sure that you're not getting that green. I'm going to move it a little bit further beyond that. And I'm going to jump right to the chase here. I'm going to right click, start up the general dimension command. So to place in the dimension here, I'm going to select on the horizontal line and that bottom horizontal edge. And I would like this to be 10 millimeters. So while still in the general dimension command, simply select on the arc. Inventor is intelligent enough to know that it will default to a radial dimension here. I will type in 120 for the value that I want. And again, right click. I'm going to start up the 2-point rectangle command. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and move my cursor over the top right endpoint with the green circle, so I know that's locked in. Now the values that I want for this rectangle are going to be 40 millimeters for the overall length. Press the tab key. Now for the height, I want this to be 16. And again, press the tab key or enter. And the rectangle is fully defined. If I go ahead and right click OK, you can see that it's fully constrained here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove material by selecting these two profiled areas that we just sketched. So first of all, we'll go ahead and we'll finish out the sketch environment. And again, I'm going to get into the Extrude command by selecting on any of the geometry from the mini toolbar. Click on Create Extrude. And I'm going to define my two profiles. So you can see right now we're defaulting to doing a join. So I want to change that. And we're going to, first of all, we'll change that to a cut operation. Now for my drop-down list, I don't want this to be set with a specific distance. I want this to go all the way through. So if the geometry would change its depth, this cutout would always go through it. So again, simply go ahead and click on Enter or click on the green check mark. And there's our beginning of our car body. So to finish off this section of the exercise, I'd like to save the car body. So again, from the quick access toolbar, just go ahead and click on the save command. And then for the name, type in F1 car body. And then click on save.